Luca, we don't normally talk hockey on this channel, but when there's big news, we try to hit on it. The Sabres made a general manager change this week. I am not the hockey guy on this podcast. You certainly are that with your Sabres Chat podcast, season ticket holder, etc. But it seems like the temperature of the fan base was about time. As somebody who's a diehard Sabres fan, just tell me what it means. Tell me what the outlook means, both short term and long term.
Well, short term, just a sigh of relief. I mean, honestly, everyone understands. Here, you know what, Josh? I'll swap us. Boom. Now the name's under me. The short term. I mean, short term and long term. I think that's all lumped in one. Kevyn Adams just got stale. I think what we're starting to learn as the firing happened this past Monday is that even players in the dressing room, people around the organization were growing old with Kevyn Adams. And the message that he kept delivering publicly, I think, was even rubbing fans in the media the wrong way. And I think that also extended itself into internal things. And Terry, for the longest time, I think, wanted to do things in a way that he felt he could control. But the writing was on the wall as soon as they hired Jarmo Kekäläinen to be an advisor in essentially what now feels like it was a 5-month span job interview, essentially, to see if he was the next GM to bring in. And I mean, push came to shove. Time was now. The timing of it all, I will say, is fascinating. The fact that it leaked out and was known for a good stretch amount of time and then turned – it's like, okay, eventually after this 6-game road trip we have here, that's when we're going to do this. I think the timing was fascinating, for one. And two, I'm glad that they didn't wait till closer to the trade deadline, closer to the Olympics that are coming up in February. Whether the NHL is getting involved in that or not, I have no idea with everything that's going on over in Italy and that rink construction. But I think Jarmo coming in to talk about him is going to be something I would like to believe will feel like a breath of fresh air to Sabres fans. I think Jarmo Kekäläinen comes in being a very bold, aggressive GM previously with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Everyone's heard the stat. He is only the third individual hired by the Sabres since their inception to have previous NHL GM experience. The last was Bowman all the way back in the 70s when he was hired. So it's one of those things where this is definitely new territory for the modern Sabres fan, but he is credited to bringing in Artemi Panarin. He's credited with making moves for like Marian Gaborik with the Blue Jackets. He got Johnny Gaudreau somehow to come to Columbus. He is a part. He has his hands on a lot of different things when it comes to the Blue Jackets and building a successful culture there. He's also done a pretty solid job locating talent. I mean, he is the GM that was in term that drafted Zach Werenski, who is an absolute cornerstone for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He recognizes talent, understands things, and I love the message that he delivered in his opening presser. A couple things came out of it where everyone's under evaluation. He does not hold anyone when it comes to he will just blindly trust them, believe in them, whatever. Everyone's position, whether it's players on the ice, whether it's coaches behind the bench or anyone else in the organization, they are under evaluation. Everyone needs to take their jobs seriously. I think that's a big thing. And then also the fact that he said Terry basically gave him full autonomy and control of the organization. That right there, saying full autonomy, is something that it has been believed for the longest time Terry was unwilling to separate with, to the point where you hear the things like him essentially telling Brendan Shanahan, no, I don't want you as a president of hockey ops. I am the president of hockey ops. It's like, I don't need my owner being the head and control of hockey operations as well. That is, you are doing too much cooking in the kitchen there. You need to let the organization be its own entity and put hockey people in position to do hockey things. Terry, you're a great owner when it comes to having money and doing the thing you do. I need hockey people making decisions. And I think Jarmo is one of those guys that you will see bold, calculated. I don't want to just say bold like he's just going to go crazy and burn things down. They are calculated. He has been around hockey for a long time of his life. He has been an NHL GM for a good stretch of his career. He knows what it takes to do certain things. And I think this move is a message sent to the locker room first that tells them that things are being taken seriously. And I think this could reap great rewards when it comes to roster construction and things like that in the future. But also, it wouldn't surprise me in the short term, Josh, to go back to that. You might see a bump up in play from this team in general. I think that's the kind of move that happens that really gets the players going and seeing, hey, if we can make a run at this thing. This guy says he doesn't believe we're out of the playoff contention yet, because for all of intents and purposes, they aren't. They're still in the thick of it of the East, even with where they currently sit in the standings, being near the bottom, if not the bottom. When you look at points, they're still very much in it. The East this year is just an absolute, just compact thing when it comes to, you go on a little bit of a stretch run, next thing you know, you could be in the top 3 of your division. It's the boost hopefully comes. It'll be a big test. We're live Wednesday. Tomorrow they finally come home. They're playing the Flyers, a team that they've kind of recently not had a good time with against. That if we see a bump up in play tomorrow night, Josh, I'm thinking near future wise, this could be a definite thing that gets things going on the ice, and the product we're seeing is better. But long-term wise, I think we finally have an NHL person in a position to do things in a positive direction for this organization, to hopefully, for the love of God, bring some resemblance of success to this organization after the years and years and decade plus of just nonchalant failure that it's been.
The credibility piece, there's a real value to that. And, I'm not the hockey guy on this show, but I can empathize with a team that's in a 14-year playoff drought like the Sabres are, because I watched every minute and lived every minute of the Bills' 17-year playoff drought. And there was a point in time when they were doing coaching searches, and you felt like Mike Shanahan was just using the Bills as leverage against the then Washington Redskins. Like, Mike Shanahan wouldn't truly consider the Bills, and they ultimately decide on Chan Gailey, and his big marching orders in the press conference were, "I get to be here, I want to be here," and that was supposed to make us all feel better. And I remember after hiring Marv Levy as president and acting general manager, and then when Marv got too tired for the job, and they just went next door and grabbed the scout Buddy Nix and made him GM, and it just felt like, are we a real team? And this kind of reminds me of when the Bills promoted Doug Whaley to GM. And I know Doug Whaley's kind of a meme for Bills fans, but at the time, Doug Whaley was in the Bills building as an assistant GM to Buddy Nix, but he was a hot name in league circles. He had come from Pittsburgh under Bill Cowher and that regime, and it gave the Bills credibility, kind of like when they hired Rex Ryan. Again, I get it, LOL, but as when you get in that 14-year, in Bill's case, 17-year playoff drought, you feel like you're in Siberia of the sport, like you don't even exist. And getting somebody that gives you credibility can make that happen. So I think that's important, one, to energize the fan base. Two, from my perspective, Kevyn Adams was completely tone deaf with this region when he had that comment about palm trees. Like, how do you say that to your fan base, but also to the players on the team? Now they start feeling like, well, you're not going to be able to get us any help. What's going on? So spinning it forward, I know you mentioned short term and long term. I think the biggest question on Sabres fans' minds is, what does this mean for Tuck?
That's a great question. I would say that there's no negative when it comes to Tuck's future potentially still with the Sabres. Coming from Jarmo being appointed GM, I think he is going to be evaluating that and understanding the cost. There was also the report that came out from former Sabres GM being Kevyn Adams, with Darren Drager, where he said that he was paying very much attention to other contracts going around and basically looking for north of a number of 10 point, I think it was 10.3. It's something that happened recently that's where he believed his market value is. That number, as scary as it might seem, is one that I don't know if I'm comfortable paying Tuck, but at the same time fully understand that's why he believes his market value is there. And on top of it all, I would say if they ended up re-signing him or extending him and giving him that amount, the cap is going to be going up in an aggressive manner that it won't feel nearly as kind of large as it is in short term. I mean, in 2-3 years, the cap is going to be over 10 million more in the NHL. The NHL was the first league out of the 4 major ones to get completely out of the debt that came from COVID. Props to them that, and then they signed that massive deal or massive deals with Turner Sports as well as ESPN that brought in so much revenue now to them that's why you're seeing the cap go up so aggressively for them. Tuck, it's just such a weird dynamic too. I will say this, Tuck being a guy that if they were to, let's say 10.5 annual for him, he would be making basically $3 million more than Tage Thompson. And it's like, do you believe Tuck is $3 million more valuable to this team than Tage Thompson? Well, no, but Tage also signed his contract at an interesting point in his career, which is why that number was the way that it was. So it's not a, apples to apples situation. It's truly kind of a unique, the NHL's in a weird spot where players' value changes so much. Get players signed as quickly as possible if you believe in them. That is what you need to do in the NHL, because salary numbers are going up crazy fast, as well as the cap is going up, which those things are of course related. So I think Jarmo is nothing but positive if you believe. I think Tuck was never going to resign under Kevyn Adams. I'm just going to throw that shot out there. I think Kevyn Adams being in charge and the lack of direction that was seen from the locker room is a major proponent to why Tuck was not willing to sign the dotted line. Among other things, I believe that they weren't close on a number. Kevyn Adams was probably not comfortable signing him for the number that he was looking for. I think bringing another GM in that has GM experience, credibility, all the things you and I have been discussing here, there's nothing that can be negative from that front, seen by Tuck and seen by everyone around the league, that potentially a deal could get done. I just do believe there's still some concern or question marks as to the number that ultimately Tuck is wanting and what the Sabres are willing to give him. I will find it fascinating. I mean, you're going to see something happen by trade deadline with Tuck. I think you will either see an extension happen or you will see him move down from. There is no other result, I believe, in the Tuck situation than one of those two things happening by trade deadline. So, realistically, I'd like to believe that you would even see it by the Olympics, because of course there's a long break by then, and you would like to have Tuck feel settled by then and not have to be dwelling on everything through an entire Olympic break and then coming back with a trade deadline shortly after that to really kind of spur things up. So it will be fascinating to watch, but I think all in all, Jarmo coming in is nothing but positive in any, whether it's greatly positive or minimal, I don't know, but it can't be negative in my eyes for the Tuck situation.
And what they do with Tuck will probably go a long way in determining whether they are going to push in and try to end that drought this year or play the long game. And, I sitting here with, all things being equal, I would think, hey, it's smart to play the long game, get some prospects, let's build this thing from the ground up. But again, when you have a playoff drought on your back weighing you down, it's an anchor, and you just need to get that released. So hopefully the Sabres can find a way to do both.
And for what it's worth, I do believe, I mean, even Kevyn Adams, before he was, let go, he was understanding that. And I think there's pressure within the organization as a whole to get over the line, to finally do it. When you saw the report come out that Byram and Zach Benson were looked at as key pieces and potentially moving for Quinn Hughes out of Vancouver, I mean, that is, say for what it is, it's just those two plus other things. It wasn't just going to be those two for Quinn Hughes. You saw the package that Minnesota ultimately gave, which was massive for Quinn Hughes, because Quinn Hughes is that good of a talent. You see that report where Benson, as valuable as he is seen within the organization, and Byram as dynamic as it feels like he can be on the blue line. If those two guys are easily moved off of, plus whatever else you'd have to do, whether it's prospects and or a first round pick, similar to what Minnesota had to do, that to me was a very clear indication that there is pressure probably all the way at the top from Terry to be like, hey, we need to get this drought over with. This needs to get over the line. I don't care what you have to do, make it happen. So I think, as you're even putting it and relating it to the Tuck situation, I don't think this team wants to move on from Tuck as much as they possibly can, if ultimately the pressure is to get into the postseason and they're willing to do hopefully whatever it takes to make that happen.